I have some more people. Kyra, Brian Lampert is being admitted now.
Should we get started?
I think we're ready. I think we have all our speakers.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I will be moderating today. My name is Gina Ramirez. I am with Natural Resources Defense Council and the Southeast Side Coalition to ban pet coke. Over 40 organizations are delivering a letter today to the city, urging them to stop the cycle of environmental racism and reject the pending permit that will allow General Iron to operate amongst their school and homes. We will hear from residents, students, teachers, health experts, and our community allies. So starting today, we're going to hear from our first speaker, who is Sheila Garland.
Good morning, everyone. I just realized I was first up on the leaderboard. I think this is a very, for the press, you can see my name is Sheila, Sheilah. The last name is hyphenated, Garland, Garland Olanirran. And I'm a leader on the coordinating committee of the Illinois Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival. The Illinois Poor People's Campaign and the National Poor People's Campaign have been in strong support of the community in this fight around environmental racism and environmental encroachment. And we stand ready this morning to put pressure on the city and the mayor to not just play by the rules, because the rules are not designed to protect us. We need new rules that really talk about what our communities require in order to be healthy and thriving. And so we're here this morning to call upon the mayor to, number one, to make sure that the community is informed and engaged when moves are being made. This, for us, is just a blatant lie that's coming out of the city, because we understood that they were going to be communicating with us every step of the way. And also, let's not be hoodwinked, to borrow a word, by the words coming out of the city about the process and from RGM and General Iron. They're all doing the same thing. We don't care what they call themselves. What we know is that they're bringing environmental chaos, and they're bringing additional burdens to a community that has a history of being overburdened. And it's time, we're in the year 2020, heading into 2021. It is really about time that the needs of our community and the people come first. It's time out for putting the needs of corporations and their polluting policies ahead of people and the priorities that we need for our communities, most particularly in the midst of a pandemic where research is beginning to show that the health burdens that these communities face with respect to the pandemic were already in place and now are tremendously overburdened. So we have a big lineup, so I'm not going to talk any longer, but I just want folks to know that the Illinois Poor People's Campaign, as well as the National Poor People's Campaign, are very aware of this struggle, and we are in support 100%. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Next, we will be hearing from a representative from the NAACP Southside chapter. So I'm not sure if it's Rose or Damon who will be making a statement today. You can intro yourself.
Good morning. My name is Rose Joshua, and I am the president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Chicago Southside. Our mission is to improve the political, educational, social, and economic equality of all persons and to eliminate race-based discrimination. For the last 10 years, the NAACP has focused on 6 areas. One of those areas where we found disparities, and the other 5 there are as well, is in environmental climate justice. Our objectives, one of the objectives is pollution that cause harm to residents and communities, especially in the African American communities and communities of color. The NAACP Chicago Southside supports the letter submitted to Mayor Lightfoot and signed off by several organizations and residents on Chicago's southeast side, in Chicago as well and outside of Chicago. At the outset, we oppose generally the construction of the scrap metal facility by General Iron and its parent company, Reserve Management Group, for the following reasons. General Iron has a long history and track record of polluting, especially in African American communities and communities of color. General Iron does not care about our communities when it decides to construct a scrap metal facility where people live, work, and play, and where children attend school. This is unacceptable, especially when I read about General Iron violation of rules and procedures. And I believe that the NAACP should focus on really having rules in place that protect residents. I do not believe that this is happening. It is our conclusion that the city of Chicago and Mayor Lightfoot need to build a better infrastructure in regards to process. Because if there's no process and there's no access, then there's a violation of our civil rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. Our next speaker is Nancy Lowe, who is the attorney for the Southeast Side Coalition to Ban Coke.
Hey, Nancy, you're on mute.
I apologize. I'm Nancy Loeb. I'm a clinical law professor at Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. I'd like to make 4 points. First, the city granted a permit on September 15th that we learned about last week that allows General Iron, or RMG, whatever we're calling it today, to put in place at the South Burley site all of the equipment that RMG will need to operate this massive industrial business. RMG will be able to test the equipment. The only thing it will not be able to do is actually start the operation. Second, the mayor and General Iron, RMG, are describing this as a new business and saying that General Iron is not moving to the southeast side. This is simply not true. It is the same business doing the same thing with the same equipment. Changing the name does not change the business. And if there's any question about this, you can just read the agreement signed by the mayor's office and the alderman in September 2019. It says General Iron will move to the southeast side and the city will assist General Iron in making the move. Third, this mayor ran on and promised transparency. That is not what the community is getting. First, her office and the alderman secretly signed a deal to move General Iron to the southeast side. Now they have secretly granted a permit. Southeast Side residents and their attorneys have repeatedly urged transparency. After assuring the community that the city would inform them of permit applications for the new facility, the city hid from them both the application and the permit. And now the city and the aldermen will not even meet with the residents. Finally, the lack of transparency is continuing. The mayor introduced an ordinance last month that will be heard by the zoning committee of city council tomorrow that is being called an air ordinance. That's supposed to fool people into thinking it does something to protect people's air. It doesn't. It is a zoning ordinance, and the minor changes to the zoning code would not have prevented General Iron's move to the southeast side. And even worse, it grants special privileges to warehousing, making it easier to bring massive diesel truck operations to already overburdened communities. These communities deserve much better. They deserve the truth and real protection. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Next, we will have a statement in Spanish from Eva Hernandez.
Hey, Eva, you might be on mute.
Hey, Eva Hernandez, you can unmute.
Can you unmute her, Olga?
Maybe we can start with Kelly and then circle back with Evasine.
Okay, so our next speaker will be Kelly Nichols with Respiratory Health Association.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Nichols, and I'll be reading the translation of the statements that Eva was about to make in Spanish. My name is Eva Hernandez Thomas, and I'm a nurse and a volunteer with Respiratory Health Association. I want to repeat Respiratory Health Association's strong opposition to the proposed relocation of the General Iron Metal Shredding Company to the southeast side of Chicago. We believe the city's commitment to racial and environmental justice, coupled with General Iron's history of EPA violations, including a 2018 violation of the Clean Air Act, and the already disproportionately high rates of respiratory health diseases in these communities, make this move a particularly bad idea. To be clear, RHA is concerned about members of any community living in close proximity to the General Iron facility, whether Lincoln Park or neighborhoods on Chicago's southeast side. A recent study by the Union of Concerned Scientists found that Cook County, including Chicago, ranks 8th among the nation's largest metropolitan counties with the highest exposure to on-road pollution. The county's exposure rate is 90% higher than the average of all U.S. counties with populations greater than 1 million residents, and that's before considering exposure to additional sources of air pollution. According to the most recent data from the Chicago Department of Public Health, the rate of asthma-related emergency room visits by children in the southeast side is more than 31% higher than the citywide average. The potential relocation of General Iron to Chicago's southeast side is of particular concern given both the existing industry pollution in the 10th Ward and surrounding areas and the disproportionate impact of respiratory diseases on area residents. How can this community that already lacks healthcare services, mental health resources, fair housing, increased unemployment, cope with one more stressful factor? COVID-19 is using many of the limited resources available. This relocation must be avoided. It is more important than ever that all significant emission sources be held to the highest standards and that residents in all Chicago communities, especially the southeast side, are protected and future generations can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's try Eva Hernandez again. Let's see.
I tried to force unmute, but I wasn't able to.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go to our next speaker, who is Mr. Chuck Stark.
Hello, thank you. My name is Chuck Stark. I teach science at George Washington High School. I want to talk about the Lens on Lightfoot meeting that happened last Tuesday. In that meeting, Mayor Lightfoot, I want Mayor Lightfoot to understand how disrespectful her comments were to the residents of the Southeast Side. She was asked about environmental justice issues, and she addressed three things. And she talked about matte asphalt in McKinley Park. And she acknowledged to a certain degree that the city messed up on that one, although she didn't say that they were going to do anything about it. When she got to Hilco, she said it was not the city's fault, and she blamed it on the developer. And again, didn't say that they were going to do anything about it. And then when she got to General Iron, she blamed it on the residents of the Southeast Side. She said that it's a misunderstanding. She said that we don't get it. And that is incredibly disrespectful. Later that same evening, the whole world witnessed Donald Trump refuse to denounce white supremacy. But in that meeting with Mayor Lightfoot and that Lens on Lightfoot, Mayor Lightfoot had a moment to condemn environmental racism, and she did not do it. Instead, she jumped on the opportunity to point out that it's not actually General Iron moving to the east side. It's Southside Recycling, as if we are the ones who don't understand what's happening. That is incredibly disrespectful to the residents of the east side. I teach the youth in George Washington High School. There are 1,500 students there that are less than a half mile from where this facility is going to be built. They understand what they want in their community. They understand what this is, and they do not want this. One of the definitions of environmental racism is where you have institutions, you have industries, and you have governments that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, continue to provide benefits to some while others have to pay the cost. And in this case, you have a company, whatever they want to call themselves, that keeps talking about how they're offering a public service of recycling. They're saying this is keeping scrap metal out of landfills. They're saying that this is something that needs to be done. Okay, great. But who pays for that? Right? While the whole public gets this benefit of recycling services, the residents of the Southeast Side have to pay for that. My students that I teach have to pay the cost for this community benefit. That is environmental racism. And I will tell you, these students that I work with, they have a deep wisdom, and they know what they want for their community, and this is not it. And I'm tired of city officials refusing to acknowledge that people of the Southeast Side understand what they want for their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen. Our next speaker is 12th grade George Washington High School student, Vanessa Zapita.
Good morning. My name is Vanessa Zapita, and I am a resident of the Southeast Side and also a student at George Washington High School, which, if you don't know, it's actually going to be a mere, it's going to be like less than a mile away from my school. And first, I just want to talk about how the discussion of the effects of pollution oftentimes forgets the people who that impacts it the most. For example, people who are of color, and also people of color, especially, it continues to ignore people of color, and especially people of color in local communities, because pollution impacts them at a disproportionate rate. For example, my community, the Southeast Side, it's often described to be like the armpit of Chicago, because we're basically the forgotten piece of Chicago's South Side. We're basically fit for nothing but to be the city's dumping ground. However, we as a community see the negative impacts pollution has brought upon us from companies like RMG, which is going to be the company that is going to be forming a merger with General Iron. But we see the effects of pollution every single day. We wake up to the pungent smell of sulfur, pet coke on on our windowsill, and we see like smoke that form kind of clouds, and we often mistake them for clouds. I feel like the discussion of shunning pollution goes back to the steel mills, which were there and were the first ones to impact us, because the steel mill production would go into like the rivers and everything. Basically, we're just tired of being taken advantage of, or being taken advantage of, and my community is a very resilient one. I feel like they oftentimes forget it, that we are very resilient and we continue fighting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Our final speaker is Marie Collins Wright. She is with the Coalition for Southfork CBA.
She's muted, I think.
And I think I see that Eva's unmuted. Maybe we can go to Eva and then to our final speaker.
Eva, are you ready to give your statement?
Oh.
Oh, Marie's on. I hear you, Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yes, I am the Vice President of the Jeffrey Manor Community Revitalization Council, and I'm also a member of the Coalition for Southfork CBA. And I also have had the opportunity to work with the Southeast Task Force as a citizen scientist over the last number of years. I'm a longtime resident, and I find myself at a loss to understand why during a pandemic, the city of Chicago would want to force a dirty company that's just not appropriate for Lincoln Park residents down to the southeast side, where it has already had a long history of violations, explosions, unsafe operations, rule breaking, not following any codes. And they want to close that down and move it over here, where they have already sent the last dirty company that they had, Finkel Steel, which I happened to experience and witness the explosion that took place last year. They do not have the proper supervision of these companies. They let them go and they let them operate without any oversight. As long as I've been living here, they let Agrifine and its predecessors and successors operate over here, and we have not been able to breathe in fresh air for years and years. And now they want to compound that on top of all the things, the dirty things that they keep putting over here, the pet coke, the magnesium, and everything else. And they want to do all the underhanded operations that they can to continue to practice environmental racism on our community. We have enough industry down here. And because it has been in the past an industrial community, they know that Black and brown people live here. I raised my family here. My children graduated from George Washington High School. I cannot remotely understand why anybody that represents our community would agree to allow the city of Chicago to move anything else over here, especially something that has already had a long history of violations, explosions, and not following the rules. And no matter what you change the name to, a rose is a rose, and they are not going to change their ways. And the city of Chicago ought to be ashamed of itself during a pandemic while people are struggling with respiratory issues to add to the burden. And I'm 100% against it.
Thank you so much, Marie. I'm going to try Eva one more time because I know she took the time to be on this call, and I'd really love to get her statement. Eva Hernandez, can you hear me? I don't know. Okay, well, I guess that was it for all of our speakers today. So we will now open up the floor for any questions from the press.
Good morning. Hi, this is Leah Hope with ABC7. I wanted to make sure I was clear in what we're talking about. But this permit that that several are referring to that was done in secrecy, when did you hear about it, and what specifically is the permit that you're talking about? Because I know several weeks ago I was talking with some of you about a different permit. So what is this permit that you're referring to, and when do you believe that this was granted?
I can answer that question. So as Nancy Loeb, she's not on the call anymore, the attorney for the Coalition to Ban Pet Coke, the permit was issued September 15th, but the Southeast Side grassroots groups, SETF and Coalition to Ban Pet Coke, found out from an email from Chicago Department of Public Health last Wednesday. And we only found out via email because we asked the question. We asked the status for the notice of violations on General Iron and the status for the permitting. General Iron was granted an air permit, so they are allowed to start constructing the facility on the Southeast Side. They still need a recycling permit, and that recycling permit would enable RMG, General Iron, whatever it's called, to start operating. So they still need the recycling permit, but they were granted the air permit. And it looks like the air permit was issued on September 15th.
And I know Leah Hope again, ABC7. I know previously the representatives of, what are they calling themselves? RMG? Thank you, RMG, the acronym. Had said that they had agreed to many things regarding testing, regarding emissions, regarding training, and that this was a very different operation. If anyone would like to comment on, I guess their status. I think I heard the folks from the George Washington High School talk about how the mayor perhaps referred to folks in the area not understanding the issue. So regarding how this company is offering that it's doing so much to protect the community before they've even started.
Leah, that's a great question. This is Olga Bautista with the Southeast Side Coalition to Ban Pet Coke. And just really quickly, I just want to say, like, the IEPA, with the permit that they had to receive, they had to get from the state, required that additional measures to keep the community safe. And RMG, with all of their talk about being a good neighbor and all the rest of it, said that the IEPA was going too far, that they didn't want to have to do those added measures to protect the community's health. And they're actually appealing it right now. So there's an appeal to these rules. And I think something that I can put you in touch with Nancy, the attorney for the coalition, offline. I'll put my email in the chat to get more background about that. Because what they're saying enough. It's pretty much a very low bar already for these kind of operations in the city of Chicago. And because it's going to be a mega metal recycling facility here, it's actually going to potentially take out the smaller shredders and become a monopoly. And I just don't understand how any of that doesn't impact the way the Alderwoman, the mayor, and the Department of Public Health Commissioner, Dr. Arwadi, from putting the community first. For once, You know, like we have been dealing with a coal gasification plant that wanted to move in here into this community, and had to fight that, and then massive piles of petroleum coke, and then outdoor storage of manganese that's a neurotoxicant, and we're just scratching the surface right now. So I think it's important to someone sharing their screen.
It's Ava. It's Eva.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think she might be just trying to figure out what she's doing. But actually, if you could take yourself back onto the main screen and just finish that thought, I was getting to an important point.
Yeah, so I think that's the point right now, is that the laws don't go far enough. These companies are claiming to want to be good neighbors, and all their actions are showing us the complete opposite. They're not trying to be good neighbors. They're appealing added measures to protect the community. And
is there a way to get this screen share off? Sorry, we're recording this, and I just want to be able to see you and hear you while you're sharing.
I don't know how to.
Oh, yeah, Eva needs to stop screen sharing, and I don't. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. All right, Olga. I'm sorry. If you could go back to the point you were making.
Well, I think that the city wants to really put the public health first. Then they need to do the right thing and deny these permits. And this last disregard of like we're to the community, we're coming in good faith and meeting with the city and sharing data and information that we have from other metal recyclers across the country, and what rules are being imposed on metal recyclers like in Minneapolis and other places that are way more protective than ours. And coming in good faith and with them at the table, and then they pulled it. It is a blatant disregard. They are sending a strong signal to us that our lives don't matter, and the bottom line of these metal recyclers are what's important to them. And we've had it. We're done. And why we filed a civil rights complaint to HUD and taken the offensive for the first time, instead of just defending ourselves, is actually calling them out through this civil rights complaint that was filed to HUD last month. And the complaint calls out the city for their basically a concierge to these companies and helping them relocate and perpetuating environmental racism and making sure that the southeast side of Chicago stays their dumping ground. And we've had it.
Ms. Hope, I appreciate that question, and you kind of asked me on my comments and Vanessa's comments about us being called out as not understanding what's happening. This is, and you pointed out something, how the company has promised that, and this is a major talking point that we keep hearing. And this is why I say it's continually very disrespectful to the residents of the East Side, because it's like a very Wizard of Oz thing. It's like, don't look behind the curtain kind of thing. And they use this storyline where they're saying what's happening on the north side right now, these big open facility, is not going to be down on the south side. They're saying that everything's going to be enclosed. And, you know, for one thing that I think my understanding is that's a little misleading. There are still going to be a bunch of piles left out. The one thing that they're not mentioning, and that's not in their permit, is the fact that there will be a massive increase of diesel truck traffic along Avenue O, which runs right by George Washington High School. And that comes with a whole nother issue of not only noise pollution, but traffic and also diesel emissions, which are a major contributor to particulate matters. Another thing is that even in their permit with the Environmental Protection Agency, they are being allowed to emit a certain amount of particulate matter. And from what I recall specifically, each year they will be allowed to emit 0.65 tons of PM 2.5, which is the super fine particulate matter that can actually get into our bloodstream. And then they will be allowed to emit up to 4 tons per year of PM10, which is the kind of stuff that contributes to asthma. That's the kind of stuff that gets lodged in our respiratory tract. They are being allowed to emit these things. It's in their permit. And what I want to get at here, like they're saying we don't understand what this is. They're saying that we keep thinking it's going to be what's on the north side. And my point here is that when I work with my students, when I talk to them, when I ask them, how do they envision their neighborhood? How do they envision their future? I mean, I'm sure you can imagine this, but not single one of those students ever says that they want this in their neighborhood. This is not something that I think anybody wants to step outside of their school and look around and all you see is dirty industry across the street from your school. I mean, how hopeful is that? So it's a couple issues that I was addressing with my comment. It's like we understand what they're building here, and we don't want that. And that's what's clear. And it's when it comes to like environmental justice, we need to be talking about prevention, not punishment. And the city is constantly saying that don't worry, we've got good regulations. If they mess up, we're going to fine them. Well, this company, as other people have pointed out here, this company has been fined again and again and again, and they keep doing things that break their permit. They have this RTO, thermal oxidizer, that they brag about. That thing exploded. I'm sorry, what good is it going to do to fine them a few $1,000s when they've already emitted a bunch of stuff that all of us over at the school and in the neighborhood have breathed in? All right, so we need to be talking about prevention here, not like, okay, what happens when they break their permit? Because based on what they've done in the past, chances are they will break their permit. And then this is a case of economic blackmail, right? It's a false choice between no jobs, no development, or dirty jobs, some economic development. And that's not fair. And when I look my students in the face, and when they constantly ask me like, okay, why am I teaching things? Why is this happening? I want to be able to give them an answer. And right now, the only answer I can give them is that this is an example of the city engaging in institutionalized environmental racist practices. We don't want that. We understand what it is, and we don't want that.
This is Damon Watson from NAACP. I'd like to build a little bit on Chuck's point. When we talk about the environmental justice issues, when we want to talk about the blackmail that's out there, we have to ask, how did the community get into this position where it is being blackmailed? And we get there because we are building upon decades of interrelated systemic racism issues, racial zoning, segregation, these kinds of things, redlining. We look at how the banks have loaned money to funnel people of color into a specific area. And then after all of that, when we have these polluting institutions, I'll say institutions, but these polluting companies coming about, and they want to run their operations, not follow the law, violate ordinances, violate agreements, and constantly misrepresent or just straight lie about their operations, they always come to these communities, and it's economically depressing. Is a health hazard, which again is depressing. It exacerbates the issues that we're seeing with COVID. So Chicago has been one of the leaders at least in the very beginning of this of the pandemic. Chicago was among the leaders in terms of deaths due to COVID-19. The South Side was leading in that. So you have to understand that this is an issue that is coming to a head now because of COVID-19, but it's not something new, not at all. These companies have been coming in doing the same thing over and over, and it is a problem. We look at, again, the positioning even of these companies. To position themselves within 500 yards of schools, that's 5 football fields. 5 football fields. Think about that. That's how many kids play football all the time, and how many times have you just sat at the football game? That size times 5. That's where it is. And I promise you that air pollution travels. Okay? So we have to think about these things. It doesn't just impact the South Side. It impacts plenty of people. It impacts Chicago generally. But yes, this is disproportional impact. We're talking about your externalities, your negative externalities. These issues, the economic way of looking at it, yes, the people here are paying the price. It is wrong. And it is not just here, but if you look at it, there's been plenty of research that's been done by your U.S. EPA, the Illinois EPA, several organizations dating back to at least 1983 that shows that over and over again, communities such as the South Side and all over the nation go through the exact same thing. So what you're looking at is not, this is our story, but it's our story that's shared by people around the country. So that is the impact. And so when we talk about we want environmental justice, yes, we definitely do want that, but we also need to recognize that this is such a massive problem that at least if we can solve it here, then we can provide a blueprint to help people across the country. And so we need to look at that. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Any other questions from the press?
Hi, Gina. It's Jerome from WBEZ. What was your understanding of what transparency meant with the city? If you've got 2 more permits that are out there and you're waiting to see what happens with them, what did you think was going to go down? Did you think the city was going to pick up the phone and give you a call and say, we're about to issue this permit, we want you to know why? What did you think was going to happen?
Well, that town hall that happened about a month ago in August, Sue Garza, our Alderwoman, said that every step of the way that she would be very transparent in the process. So it was very shocking that she didn't make a statement or really inform the community. So again, it was up to Southeast Environmental Task Force and all of our allies on this call to notify the community residents the status of these permits.
Oh, hello, this is Iris Barrios with Telemundo Chicago. I just want to make sure that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. I would like if one of you can answer me in Spanish, give us a statement where you're looking and where you're expecting from the mayor y qué va a representar esto para la comunidad al sur o el sureste de Chicago.
I don't think Olga's on. She usually, I see some community members on if someone wants to answer this for Iris.
Yes, Gina, this is Rose.
En español.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Or if somebody wants to say it in English and I can translate in Spanish.
If not, it's okay. I can translate it. I just want a Spanish statement, but it's okay. I can translate it.
Go ahead, Gina.
Do you just want a statement, just a general statement?
Yes.
Okay. So the general sentiment of today's press conference is that
it's okay if you don't. I already have everything in English. If you can say something in Spanish, if you can do it in Spanish, it's okay.
I just
I can help, Gina.
Oh, okay, thanks, Yesenia.
Iris, ¿me puede decir la pregunta otra vez, por favor?
Prácticamente, ¿qué es lo que buscan de esta reunión y cuál es su llamado principal a la alcaldesa?
El propósito de esta unión es para que todos sepan que ya estamos fastidiados de que el gobierno de la ciudad de Chicago ya nos estén ignorando. Estamos cansados de estar en un barrio que está contaminado y nosotros queremos que todos sepan eso. Queremos que nos pongamos unidos como comunidades y que sigamos adelante todos, pero sí necesitamos más ayuda para estar en esta lucha y ganarla. Porque para nosotros no es una opción que esta compañía se ponga en el barrio de nosotros en el sureste. No es opción. Esta junta es para que todos sepan que ya estamos cansados, para buscar ayuda de todos, de las comunidades en Chicago, de las estaciones de las noticias, de todos, de todo el mundo. Porque este es un gran problema para los latinos, para los afroamericanos, y ojalá que nos podemos todos unir para ganar esta lucha.
Yesenia, ¿cuál es el sentir de ustedes de que ustedes han realizado múltiples manifestaciones, protestas, han realizado llamados y el hecho de que ya uno de los permisos le fue otorgado a General Iron?
Otra vez, Iris, disculpe.
No te preocupes. El hecho de ustedes, la reacción de como grupo, comunidad, el hecho de que ustedes han realizado en los últimos 2 o 3 años múltiples manifestaciones, desde física hasta virtuales como la de hoy, y el hecho de que General Iron ya recibió uno de los permisos por parte de la ciudad.
Es muy difícil porque tener emoción, pues uno se enoja luego, ¿no? Porque nosotros tenemos que vivir en este barrio contaminado. Todos los grupos de la comunidad, CIDIF, Southeast Coalition of Bangkok, yo soy parte de United Neighbors of the 10th Ward, y yo empecé este año, pero estos grupos ya tienen años luchando para esto. La gran mayoría de la gente estamos enojados, cansados, tristes, desesperados, pero lo bueno del sureste es que todos siempre tenemos esperanza y todos sabemos que nos merecemos algo bueno y algo más bueno de lo que estamos ahorita. Un mixto de emociones, pero lo seguro es que siempre tenemos esperanza porque nosotros sabemos el poder que tenemos como comunidad.
Thank you.
Gracias, Iris. Mucho gusto.
Gina?
Yes, Rose.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Jerome McDonald's question from WBEZ regarding what do you expect? You know, when that question arose, what came to me is that I have a feeling that this is an example of what's happening with General Iron, and it reminds me of the eroding of our democracy as we know it. The least is to give notice to individuals that may be injured about what might happen is constitutional. It's a violation of our constitutional rights under procedural due process. And if the city or General Ryan cared anything about what they were doing, they would actually give individuals and organizations who's concerned about their communities notice of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Are there any other questions from the press? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. You can reach out to Ivan if you have any further questions. Thanks everyone. Enjoy your day.
But if anybody wants to have any follow-up interviews or has any follow-up questions, any members of the press, they could feel free to reach out to me. And I think I've emailed folks the advisory, and my phone number should be on there. Thanks all.
Thanks.